Are the NFL Combine TV ratings due to one snowed-in guy in Maine? We'll find out on a semi-drunken scouting episode of Going for Two. Des Bryant and the Cowboys management. Anatomy of a dysfunctional relationship? Is watching footage of the Aaron Hernandez trial detrimental to your health? Will signing over the hill ex-Titans make the Titans into a juggernaut of suck? We'll find out that and much more in tonight's very big show. Hey there, Sharona. Are you still upset at Bernard Pollard?
I was never upset at Bernard Pollard.
Well, to explain to
I
the
think
audience.
you both have dreadful taste in food, but I'm not upset about it. I just, I feel like there's room in everyone's life to grow, and I think that you guys can grow that way.
Okay, well, Andy, we'll explain. So, Sharona, as you may have guessed, is from the South, and she's a big fan of this food stuff called the grit.
I
And
enjoy the grit as well.
oh, see, look at that, and they get all
Huh?
the way up north. Canadian grits, are they part of poutine? Because if that's the case, I might eat more of it. Just, that's just me. But anyway,
Grits,
Sharona.
grits are awesome. I'll fight you if you disagree.
Sharona basically said, I gotta have grits, and I had some recently, and they were not good, and she just said I didn't have the right kind of grits. So she made a comment on Twitter, and she added Bernard Pollard to the list, the poorly chosen Twitter handle of Crush Boy. And he said also that he does not like the grit, which I thought was great just because an NFL player agreed with me, and that's probably the only time that's ever going to happen, so yay. It was
Well, see,
fun.
I already knew he'd already tweeted me that he didn't like the grits, so I knew that,
Hmm.
and so that's why I included both of you
Spoiler
guys
alert.
in. Yeah, that's why I included both of you guys in that because I knew you were both grit haters.
Yeah, well, I try. I try to like things, but I just am what I am. So, with the grits introduction out of the way, we had to get our southern food a little bit. Um, let's welcome Andy Miley. He is the co-creator and sole proprietor of the Dynasty Blitz site. You want Dynasty Fantasy Football Insights? Go there. Andy's taken his skills to the next level by attending the Senior Bowl, and he's watched more NFL Combine footage than Mel Kiper's hair. He's a Steelers fan living in Maine, so he's technically covered in snow. So how are you doing, and how is the snow situation?
I'm doing fine. The snow situation, we've had 6 feet in February, which is great considering in December and January we had less than a foot. So February's been very trying. I can't wait till it's over.
We don't even understand those terms in the South. I mean, Nashville's actually had a pretty bad week or two. They had like an ice storm and then a snowstorm. And today we've had a weird ice mix rain thing going on in Atlanta, which we preemptively shut the city down. So we were fine. We're good down here. No problems. Still building our really expensive stadium, so no worries there. But we're bringing Andrew back on. He was the first Ask Your Fantasy Football Expert interview, which means he's the greatest fantasy football mind in the world. We did a little follow-up, I think, last year when you became back on Dynasty Blitz full-time. But what's sad is when I did this interview, which was in early 2011, I had about 5,000 tweets. Now I'm at 59,000. Somehow I've about almost tripled Andy's total because you were way ahead of me when we did that. But so I guess you win the award for actually having a life. So congrats on that.
I don't know if I have a life. I just spend more time watching film and less time interacting on Twitter, even though I'm more than happy to. Seems like anybody that ever asked my advice wants to do it through a DM because they don't want anybody to know who they're asking about.
Oh, right. So secret, huh?
Yep.
That's good. We may get into some personal dynasty issues because my team is it's not great, but we'll work on that later. So what was it like? Was this your first time to go to the Senior Bowl? What was that experience like?
I was actually my second time. It was my third All-Star game. I went 2 years ago to the East-West Shrine game, and then a couple people that I met there were like, yeah, East-West is okay, but you got to go to the Senior Bowl. I went last year to the Senior Bowl, and then this year I enjoy it because you get to see almost all the coaches interact with whoever you want. They're very great at, if you want to talk to a player, they will get you the opportunity to talk to a player. Of course, I don't talk to players. I watch them. I write stuff down. I talk to everybody else, but I don't talk to the players. I occasionally talk to a coach or two, but they're all just so busy doing their own stuff. I'm like, I'm just a fantasy writer who also does some scouting for myself, for my own dynasty team. So I don't even want to bother them, to be honest with you.
You think it'll hurt the players long term who are coached by Titans coaches in the Senior Bowl?
Well, I will say that Gus Bradley is very everyone friendly, and he's a very gregarious kind of guy. I would say no one on the Titans staff struck me as that way.
Oh, interesting.
We
Well,
were
the word around here is that Ken Wisenhunt doesn't get out much. He did get out to WWE the other night and apparently was booed very, very, very loudly.
That's not surprising. I mean, he used to be a Steelers coach too. That's why I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have some good insight on that unusual connection. The Steelers connection. I don't know. We may have got the Lima suite of your coaches, but we'll see how it goes long term.
I remember when Titans fans were begging for them to draft Lima Sweet, and Pittsburgh took him instead. And I was never on the Lima Sweet bandwagon, but a lot of people were.
Yeah, he was a heck of an athlete. Was never a football player, but a heck of an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of the most boring dynasty trades that have ever been made is when I traded Lima Swede to my dad for Josh Cribbs.
Whoa!
And I actually had to play Josh Cribbs because I was so bad at receiver because I got return yardage, and it was like, yeah, it was kind of like, what was it, John Baldwin, and it was like the Chiefs and the 49ers traded their two disappointing draft picks, and neither of them did anything ever, but it was like, all right, let's try a new, okay, it didn't work, so, yeah. So, Andy, what's it like to scout players kind of live as opposed to on film?
Well, it's interesting. Basically, you kind of try to get there as early as you can to pick your spot. And the thing about watching Senior Bowl practices is the target's always moving. And I love it. I got some interaction from my site going, well, CBS thought this, and ESPN saw this guy do this. And I'm like, I'm one guy trying to watch 50-something odd players, and I pick out the people that stand out to me right away, and I just stay with them. And I played offensive line and I played linebacker. I don't watch offensive line because they don't do anything for me fantasy. So my first eyes usually go to the linebackers, to the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and I kind of pay attention to the quarterbacks and the safeties. But it's just so much in front to try to watch. And one of the things that you always try to do is, how does this guy, if somebody stands out to you or somebody doesn't, because there's a lot of people that do things either really bad or really well. And if they're just kind of doing what they should be doing, I'm unfortunately, there's not much to write about.
And about how many scouts, writers end up being at kind of Mobile?
I would say probably well over, well, during the week from like Tuesday to Thursday, which is when the practices are going on, I would say probably about 400 or 500. And what's really, I'm not going to go to these again, but the weigh-ins, and to actually see them in their skivvies, the height and weight, and so many people love that stuff. And yeah, it's good to see if somebody's like pretty skinny or flabby or somebody's really jacked up, but I don't know. It doesn't, it's not something I enjoy, and there seems to be some people that kind of enjoy it a little too much.
That's where hashtag men in shorts comes from. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's an
Yeah.
annual tradition because on weigh-in day, all my timeline is measurements. And I'm just like, oh, we thought this guy was 6 feet tall, but he's 6 feet and a quarter. And it's like, okay. I mean, I see in certain positions where that's an advantage, but you should be pretty close. I mean, no one's Tom Cruise here wearing like foot-high platform shoes on the field to like hide the fact that they're really short. But I don't know. It's yeah, it could be something. Now, Andy, when it comes to like scouting terms, I have trouble not like making jokes just because how loose are your hips? Are your hands soft like butter or hard like listening to Tony Saragusa talk? Are you short or long strider? How about your foot frequency? And how does one run in front of their pads?
Well, if you run behind your pads, it's like you kind of throw your hips and you come up into something. I guess that's the biggest way to say that part. The whole foot frequency thing is just how quickly. I mean, there's some people that just kind of react and are like stand around flat-footed, and then they suddenly do something. I always like the people that are chopping their feet or trying to are being able to move around. I think some people are just born more flexible, and you can just kind of see that when they're like, changing directions or anything else. It just smoothness. I know they're all kind of crazy, silly terms, but it's just ways that we use to describe what we see that just kind of helps anchor certain tendencies, just like a lot of people go, well, this guy looks exactly like this guy, and just because they want something that kind of gives you an idea of how they are, even though we all know each individual athlete is totally different than anybody else, but there's just something that reminds you of what somebody else does, so hopefully you're going to be able to get a little bit more insight.
I think I've just come up with a great idea for you. This could be the big YouTube hit of the season. I think you get the full pads on and you actually demonstrate some of these terms, like in your room right there. Show people, bring in a tackling dummy and show. Here's how you attack. On short yardage, this is what you do. Well,
Well,
the foot thing might be tough.
it
You
might
have to
be
have a
tough.
low camera angle. You need a little assistance there with the video.
Well, here's the funny part is on Sunday, I'm actually going for a job interview, a part-time coaching job for a local high school to be their offensive line and linebacker coach. So
Oh,
maybe I'll
interesting.
get to do that.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Hit the sled, man. That's
Oh, I
awesome.
love the sled. You kidding me?
So what do you
Now,
think of
did
these?
you play? Did you
Oh,
play football in school?
I played in high school. I didn't play in college. Um, I went to Bowling Green University
Uh,
in Ohio, not in Kentucky.
go
oh,
Falcons.
Sorry, yeah, the Falcons.
I was going to be so excited.
They
Well,
went good.
and they actually played each other this year, which was pretty cool to see
That
in
is
Bowling Green.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in college, Bowling Green visited Missouri and beat them, and Bowling Green finished 3-8 that year. So, go Tigers! We had trouble with MAC schools. I don't know what it is. We had a MAC coach, so maybe that's it. But out of all, this is hard to do just because scheme's tough. But what about, is there the edge guy you think is worth that number 2 pick for the Titans? Just because there's so many defensive ends, linebackers. Is he a 3-4 linebacker, an end, or 4-3 end? And there's seemed to be a mess of guys who might be that good, but I don't know about number 2 overall.
Leonard Williams is the real deal. He can play
Yeah.
wherever you need him to play. He is probably the best defensive lineman since JJ. In my humble opinion, and on a lot of other people's opinion, he's the cat's pajamas, as they would say when I was 5 years old.
Yeah, it's interesting, and a lot of people love him, and think that other people don't. It's going to be curious to see what team boards, if team boards reflect that.
Well, and Kuiper and Mayock, everybody is talking him up, and I've only seen like two games so far of him. One of them being bowl game, and I can't wait to watch more because I mean he looked great at combine as well, and he was expected to. I think he almost ran like a 5 on the 40, but he just looked explosive and just shedding everything else. He looked like a difference maker for sure.
Yeah, I'm old. I wouldn't disagree, but I was noticing I didn't get a chance to listen in because I was doing other things. But I was noticing tweets saying that Greg Cosell was saying on local sports radio today that had he was kind of couching his bets, I guess is the best way to put it, on him. I just thought that was interesting.
Oh, and Greg Cosell is he is the bomb. I love listening to him. Everything else, I respect his opinion.
I
And
think disagreement's good. I do. Yeah.
I disagree. Just kidding. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there.
You would, Zach.
Oh, come on. But Andy, you actually seem to be going in and hitting all the positions. So are there positions that you enjoy scouting more than others and some that are kind of difficult?
I would say probably the most difficult one for me is quarterback, just because there are so many different pieces to what they do. You got the footwork, you got the vision, how they do in the pocket. If it's just being a leader of men, all those different parts. To me, that's where I have my most difficulty with. And defensive backs, well, especially cornerbacks, is not a strong point for me. I had two brothers that were, one was first team All-State in Ohio at running back, and my other brother was second team. So I feel I have a good feeling for running backs, played linebacker, and I also played some defensive end. So I like the bigger guys. Tight end sometimes can be difficult just with the blocking versus receiving kind of thing. Um, as far as fantasy goes, I think probably my strongest is actually wide receivers of all things, which I don't know why, other than I just find what they need to do in their skill sets to be a little bit easier, I guess, for me to understand it. I honestly don't know why.
Well, last year was just such an insane season for wide receivers. Like, what were some of the guys you were just super excited about, and maybe who kind of surprised you from last year's class?
Well, I had Mike Evans, my top, my first, my highest guy. Had Watkins second, and then I did have Odell Beckham third, and I had Cooks fourth. That was pretty much spot on, save for Beckham coming back and being more amazing. I was really proud of Landry Jones. That was another guy that I really liked, and I'm sure you guys are probably hoping that Mettenberger is going to get healthy and start doing something. He certainly looked pretty good against my Steelers last year, so that's for darn sure. But then again, I don't know what quarterbacks didn't look good against my Steelers. So, but
Well, you
so
did win that game, though.
Well, thankfully, or we wouldn't have made the playoffs. So you guys kind of did that to us the year before. Make sure we didn't when
Hmm.
we went 8-8.
Yep. Yeah. The Steelers Titans rivalry has always been interesting. One of the when I was talking about this last night. I talk about it. Seems like more lately. I miss the AFC Central.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were just better rivalries with the Ravens and the Steelers and even Bengals and Browns. You just had that history, and now in the AFC South, you're like, oh boy, Teal, Texans, Andrew
Yeah.
Luck,
It's
looking at the
just
Colts and going, man, their roster kind of sucks. How come they go 11-5 every year? Oh yeah, the AFC South. Never mind. Yeah, but
yeah, and Andrew Luck. I mean, if they didn't have Andrew
he's
Luck,
not
what would they
bad.
be?
He's not too bad.
Not at all.
But
I wish. Go ahead.
you come up now with your rookie rankings. So, as someone who has the number 4 pick in a dynasty rookie draft coming up, who do you think's going to fall to me?
Well, depending on need, I mean, you're going to have either. I mean, Gurley has the injury concerns. Gordon should be gone. And depending where somebody, if they want White or Cooper. Right now, I have White as my number 1 wide receiver, but getting Gurley, Cooper, or White at 4, you're going to be happy because Gordon's going to be gone,
Why do
unless
you
he.
have White over Cooper?
Um, I just think he's more physical and he's more explosive. I mean, the thing about Cooper runs great routes. He's smooth. He catches the ball well, but he does not so much get. He doesn't leap up for the ball. He's not the fighter. I don't think he can make contested catches if he needs to. White, I think, can. I think he's a lot more physical, but I think Cooper can definitely is going to be very smooth. He's going to be Kendall Wright on steroids is what Cooper's going to be. I just see White being uh, more physical and being willing to fight for the ball and
Who
just
is your NFL comp for White?
I haven't come up with one yet,
I wouldn't
unfortunately.
have comped Cooper to Kendall Wright.
Well, no, I wasn't. I was just saying that they remind me of just with the smoothness
Oh, okay, okay. I'm sorry.
and
My bad.
and the hands.
Okay,
Uh, but I wasn't saying I don't say the Cooper is right at all. I'm just saying he
I got you.
reminds me of him.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Do you have an NFL comp for Cooper or White? Just I know it's
No,
hard because no guy's just completely, you know.
right, and right now I've only watched like 2 games on each of them. I
Okay,
have a lot more work to do. Um, all the guys for the Senior Bowl, I got to see them live, and then I went
I got
back and
you.
watched some tape. The only one that I've seen of any kind of big tape right now is Jalen Strong. I actually have an article that's going to be coming out this week. I've watched 9 of his games, and he reminds me of Vincent Jackson. I know you didn't ask about it, but just talking receivers, he's more of a physical receiver that all he does is make contested catches. He can't get separation at all, but he can sky to get the ball, but he can't he can't keep anybody away from him, and he can't outrun anybody, even when he runs a 4.44 in at the combine.
Yeah, it's interesting
Interesting.
the timed speed versus the actual like field speed. This is a theory I came up with last year, well, I don't know, a while back. So is there anything when it comes to like fantasy players or NFL players about them just having like a cool name? Like, don't people want to take Devin Funches just so they can say bunches of Funches or Duke of Earl Johnson, while Kevin White is just like a boring name? Like Chris Johnson had the most boring name ever, but he was, a really good player for a while.
What Jay Ajayi? I mean, come on,
Yeah, that's a good one.
that's right there. I mean, you could do a yo-yo saying that or something. I mean, that's an exciting one. Because was born in Ann Arbor, Funches still is in my top 5 in wide receivers, even with this crappy 4.740. But I still don't know about that guy. I mean, he loves to fight the ball. He's like one of those guys can make a crazy catch, and then you throw him something that he should be able to catch in his sleep, and he doesn't do it. So yeah, Funches, he's gonna be fun for whoever drafts him. Hopefully, they'll figure out what to do with him.
The hope for that. What was it? Marcus Colston, like his rookie year, wasn't it in one like Yahoo? He was listed as a tight end.
Yep.
So maybe Funchess becomes that rare guy who gets a dual position thing, which is one slight advantage of baseball over football, getting multiple positions. But anyway, no baseball talk. It's terrible. Anyway,
See,
what?
you're such a football
I
purist.
know you love your other sports, and they're fine. They'll have their moments, but you know what? There is no off season, so
Although
it's
baseball's
fine.
not one of my favorites, but yeah.
My heart only has room for one sport right now, and that's just the way it goes. So, Andy, is this year's quarterback class as bad as it seems, or are these two top guys actually, going to be good?
I hope they can be good. I mean, Winston with his character issues. He came off as charismatic as all get out. Hopefully, if Tampa does select him, that with him being, a fixture in Florida, that hopefully he can get some people around him that are not just going to tell him what he wants to hear, and that will actually give him constructive criticism, and that he is going to be ready to be the face of a franchise. I like Mariota, athletic guy, but I don't know unless he goes into a Chip Kelly offense. I'm not sure how adaptable he's going to be, if he's going to have happy feet. And just with them being interviewed together on the NFL Network, Mariota seems like a great guy and a nice guy, but I'm not sure if he's a leader of men. And Jameis seems to be like he has the persona that I'm going to throw you on my back and we're going to go. And it seems like there's a lot of
Yeah, but we heard that last year with Teddy Bridgewater. Remind me again who was the Offensive Rookie of the Year?
It wasn't
was
me.
I was going to say it wasn't me either. Who was the
I mean, come on.
Teddy didn't get out.
Sociopaths come across as great, charming, wonderful. I'm going to put you on my back and carry you, but they're sociopaths.
I noticed that when you mentioned Jameis Winston, that was when Sharona decided she needed a drink. So that was a a good moment in show history right there.
Sharona's gonna Sharona.
I choose to drink after every question, and you actually pick your spots. See, sometimes you have to pick your spots. It's very important.
I'm sorry. I'll sit back and try and look pretty and not have an opinion.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
kidding.
That'll never
I'm
happen.
kidding. Zach knows I'm kidding. Andy didn't know me. Zach knows I'm
Yeah, you
kidding.
seem like a wilting flower or whatever it is. Not so much. That's why we do this thing. Is there anyone, I don't know, are there any sleepers there in the class? Because I've heard like Hundley out of UCLA, but really, even like going past that, I barely know anybody's name right now. I don't know, is anybody jumping out since you've watched some film and saw some of these guys in Mobile?
Bryce Petty. For some reason, only Mayock and I like him. I wouldn't say that I think he's awesome, but he's definitely somebody that in a year or two I think can become a starting quarterback. He, coming from Baylor, he's got a lot of work to do, not taking snaps under center, and also being in a gadgety type of offense. Other than that, there really isn't. I like Hundley. but he can get some happy feet and get a little bit erratic as well. I think if he goes with Chip Kelly, I think he could be pretty good as well. I mean, Chip Kelly can work with about anybody, but and going back to Jameis, I mean, I don't condone anything.
I know you don't. I know you don't. I just had to put my 2 cents in.
Oh no! But I mean, that's one of the things is if in a rookie draft, I'm not going to take him just because of that. And I got rid of Hardy for Greg Hardy for basically the same reason. To me, you have to make a choice of why you root for who you root for.
Oh yeah, I do.
And that's just Jameis is never going to be my guy. With if it would have been just the stupid, whatever the crab legs, okay, and saying something stupid out in the quad, so be it. But the other stuff, no, that's not.
Let me ask you this, Andy, because I don't remember who it was on Twitter saying this. Apparently, there were rumors running around at Senior Bowl, or maybe it was the Combine, but there are apparently rumors running around. It's the season of rumor, right? Which I hate to indulge in, but that there were other incidents at Florida State that never came out. Did you ever hear anything like that?
Yeah, I did hear that there were several issues, that there were more than one or two young ladies, and that basically he thinks he's the cat's pajamas, and
There's one who's actually prepared to come forward and testify in the civil case. Besides the victim,
right,
obviously, who's the one suing. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting. I had someone try to argue with me on the Twitter machine about whether or not these teams protect these guys, and I was just like incredulous that they would think that they don't.
Yeah, say anything bad about him, and like FSU Twitter comes after you, but
they
like
came
the
after
Tallahassee
me.
police just are like, it's football. I mean, it's an industry. It's a big thing. It's huge, as they would say.
One of the more interesting arguments that they came after me about was that he wasn't the argument that he wasn't the starter at the time, and therefore nobody would have tried to protect him because he wasn't the starter, which I thought was bizarre.
Well, he was the starter in waiting.
Yeah, well, everybody knew he was going to be the guy, right? I mean, this was not, and he was only not the starter because they were working him in and trying to get him prepared and comfortable. Correct. I mean, it wasn't, but I wouldn't, I don't, I've learned not, you don't argue with
crazy.
Most people.
Yeah. Most people.
Yeah.
So,
Rangers.
I understand what you're saying, Andy. I do. I do.
So, are there any other draft nicks that you'd like to challenge to a cage fight? Anybody except Ryan Riddle?
Well, I know I could take Shane Hallam because Shane I could fit in my pocket because I got to meet him last year.
Fellow Pittsburgher.
Yeah.
At least a Pittsburgh fan. Yes.
No. Shane's awesome. Unfortunately, didn't get to come to the Senior Bowl this year, but I hung out with him all the time last year. Joe Everett and I are good buddies as well. I actually met him the first year at the East-West Shrine game and have seen him both Senior Bowls. No, those are kind of my usual sounding boards, just because they try to talk me out of taking some scouting classes, which I actually did from the National Football Post. I took 2 scouting classes, and just to kind of make sure that I was matching. I mean, I'm 45 years old. I've been watching football since I've been 4. I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Football's been a
Are you a Michigan guy?
Yeah, well, I was raised in Ohio but born in Michigan, so I was.
You have that Ohio State, Michigan pull. I gotta go one or the other.
Yeah, well, when I was younger, I would go back and forth, but from like age 10, I stayed Michigan. So
Did
I've
you?
been,
Okay.
well, and I was very fortunate. My father went to Michigan for college, and my grandfather went to Ohio State, and my grandfather actually had season tickets to Ohio State. So from age 7 to 14, I got to go to every Ohio State Michigan game, and
Oh,
that
that's
was awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
That is way, way cool.
So you're like a double trader to your state then, since you're a Michigan guy and a Steelers fan.
Yes. No, very much so. Thank God that a I'm an Indians fan, and I'm also a Cavaliers fan. And I gave LeBron a bunch of crap when he was with Miami, but I forgave him when he came back.
Of
But
course.
I had to give him something. I had
Hmm.
they wouldn't even let me in the state now. Me living in Maine, I couldn't get back in unless I said I liked some part of their teams. So I give them the secondary sports in my case because football, is the end all be all. Just ask my wife. I could do a pan
I
around
see
this
your
room,
room. Yeah.
and you could see my Steelers stuff painted, everything else. So yeah, and my Steelers tattoo on my arm and all that other craziness.
So you're
Well,
legit.
we have to talk before you get out of here. I know Zach's got a lot of his questions, but we have to talk before you get out of here about Ken Wisenhunt and
Whoa. Do we
about
have
Dick.
to?
Yes, we do. And about Dick LeBeau and about whether Andy thinks that the Titans are in good hands or not.
With Dick LeBeau, I think you're in very good hands. I actually got to meet him last year at the Senior Bowl, and he just the thing about Dick is I think the defensive game has passed him by a little bit, just with the way he designs defenses. I mean, when Tebow kicks your butt in the playoff game, it's a little bit of concern.
Hmm.
Um, but the players will play for him. They will do whatever it takes for him. He just needs some help um, fortifying the defensive concepts.
Okay.
I think having him be a linebackers coach or what he's the official defensive coordinator now, isn't he?
He is um, uh, assistant head coach, and what is his official? It's weird. Special assistant to the defense or something. It's a created position. We have a defensive coordinator. It's Ray Horton.
They kind of have It's like they have but they don't want to do. Yeah. I think didn't the Cowboys do that last year? They kind of like
Yep.
kept their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, but they hired a new guy in both places. And NFL teams might as well have 7,000 coaches. So
Well,
I would say something should help, hopefully, because yeah, they were bad last year.
I was just going to say, make him in charge of the linebackers and safeties.
Okay.
If you could just do that, I think it would be. I mean, he's a great linebackers coach. He's great with safeties. Let the cornerbacks and defensive linemen give that to your other defensive
Give
coach.
that to
And
Ray Horton. Okay.
yeah, well, and him. Well, Ray worked under him anyway, so
Yeah, I know there's familiarity.
that's got to be a little bit weird for both of them.
See, I thought it was a kick in Ray. I thought it was a kick in Ray Horton's balls. Pardon my
Oh
French,
yeah.
but I mean, come on now. I mean,
Yeah.
Ray Horton's well respected, and why do you think you? I just,
Well, isn't that just ownership kind of being like, yeah, we need
I don't,
an interjection there. We need to,
I don't know. Was
get
it or
things
was
up.
it Kim Wisenhunt wanting to give his friend a job? I mean, I don't know.
No, that could be too. I mean, Wisenhunt, I think, well, and LeBeau, his wife lives in Cincinnati, and he was not. He wanted to be within driving distance of her. He wasn't going to take a job out in Arizona because that would be too far.
So anyway,
That's
so
a nice retirement gig.
Ken Wisenhunt, what are your thoughts on that hire? Guy who kind of started out strong in Arizona and then really, really struggled at the end of his tenure there.
That was to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
My answer is your turn.
I think he's a good offensive coordinator when that's his job. Unfortunately, I think he's one of those guys that has gotten promoted too high. That doesn't. I don't think he has the full grasp of being a head coach, and I don't mean to say that meanly because there's a lot of coaches that are much better.
Oh yeah,
coordinators than they are head coaches. I mean, Mike Tomlin, most people will say isn't a great specialty defensive coach, and that's supposed to be his strength, but he does a good job overseeing others. And I think that's one of the keys to being a good head coach is to overseeing others. I mean, look at Pete Carroll in Seattle. I mean, one of his biggest things is to put his coaches in the best position to get them promoted. I don't get that vibe from Wisenhunt, unfortunately.
Like he's trying to do too much because he was calling the plays last year, and wow, he called some good ones. And in a way, Wisenhunt is like the poor man's Jeff Fisher because he had one playoff run with Arizona that was like this total kind of lucky, and they almost won the Super Bowl. And that kind of happened to Jeff Fisher. It's like you had one nice run, and then besides that, you've been kind of mediocre. Actually, Wisenhunt's been way below mediocre. So yeah. So you're in a good spot there. What about the new guy who came in? I forget. Was it the linebackers coach that promoted? Is
who, Joey?
For the Steelers, yeah.
Joey Porter? Oh yeah. It was funny because
he's a coordinator now for them because they have.
Kevin Butler.
Okay, because I was like.
He was the linebackers coach, and he was the assistant defensive coordinator. He was always the coach in waiting, defensive coordinator in waiting, and basically from what I understand, is he went to the Steelers and said kind of like, I'm tired of waiting, and I think I'm going to go somewhere else. And LeBeau's getting up there, and they made the decision to say, yeah, I think it's time. So then they moved him up, and they moved my boy Joey Porter up as well.
Joey. I recall them selling T-shirts in Pittsburgh that said, "Where was Ray Lewis when Joey Porter was shot?" So that was good. Back in the day. Very classy. We're always classy.
Yep.
Yeah. So back just for a few minutes back to this exciting rookie class. You seem to be really high on Telvin Coleman out of Indiana. Is he like kind of a Chris Johnson type? He seems like he's a really fast guy.
He's a really fast guy, and maybe it's because he ran for 250 some odd yards against my Bowling Green Falcons that made him stick out to me. But I would say he's old school Robert Smith is what he kind of looks like to me. He isn't the biggest guy, but their entire offense stunk other than him. And none of their offensive line's going to get drafted. Their wide receivers, tight end, quarterback, nobody is. He's the only one who's going to get drafted, and they hung around the Big Ten okay just on him. So to me, that's enough that I like him, and I haven't seen that many games of his. But that's one of the guys that I'm going to be digging through to watch a lot more. But I really like him.
Yeah, he got hurt early in that Missouri game, and like the backups came in and like a true freshman, and they just were tearing Missouri up. And then Coleman came back in, made like a big screen pass catch in that last drive for one of the more embarrassing. That reminded me of the good old days of Missouri, an embarrassing loss to a team that does nothing. Yeah, so now I can go cry. So I'm hoping because we really need an infusion of running back talent in fantasy football. So how is this class a lot better than last year? Is there hope for the future?
It is a lot better than last year. I think Early, Gordon, Coleman, Yeldon, Ajayi, and I know a lot of people are sky high on Amir Abdullah right now. And I
Hmm.
mean, he was amazing in the three cones and the jumps and everything else. And he looked good at the Senior Bowl in practices, but he cannot pass block a lick, and he fumbles the ball about every 20 touches. So if you're
See,
cool
these
with
are not
that,
good things.
fantastic, because you know when he's in there, you're not going to pass the ball
Mhm.
unless you're throwing it right to him. And he's not going to block anybody and just, hit him really hard and the ball's going to pop out. If you're cool with that, he's a great
Go
guy.
for it.
Right.
So with the like the tight end class, is it basically Max and a bunch of schlubs, or is there's a few good guys in there?
I like Clive Wolford. I got to see him at the Senior Bowl. He looked pretty good. He's not the greatest thing since sliced bread by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Clive can be kind of a Charles Clay kind of guy in the NFL. I like the O'Leary kid from Florida State as well, but I think he's going to be more of an H-back, tweener kind of guy, fullback. He can catch the ball well. He's not very fast, but he can block and he can run tough. But yeah, that's about it. I know there's some people excited about that Jeff Herman from Ohio State, who really didn't do much of anything this year, got injured. I I've watched about 4 or 5 Ohio State games this year and last year, and he never really jumped out to me. But maybe he can do something, but I really haven't seen it.
So we'll do a quick question, a guy from last year. So will there be a time when Bishop Sankey doesn't suck?
I had him as my number one running back in the class, and boy, and so did Shane Hallam, and we both stuck on that. You know, there was nothing elite about him. He was pretty good in a lot of spots in college, and it's just unfortunately you need a hook to be a good running back in this league. And I know that you guys had some issues with the offensive line, at least with the tackles, but
Mhm.
um,
Definitely
yeah.
issues along the offensive line, and frankly, they didn't run the ball that much either. And I know Andy knows this. If you don't give a running back enough opportunities to get in a groove, they're not going to get in a groove.
Well, and they didn't get him the ball in space enough either. I
Yeah, they
thought they
didn't.
could have, thrown some
On the ball.
swing passes or something because he actually looked better catching the ball than he did running it most of the
Yeah.
time.
We
I,
hope to
I
get
didn't
that.
understand Ken Whisenhunt's fascination with the Leon Washington third down thing. I just, to this day makes my head
Hello, 8-yard draw play on
spin,
3rd and 10.
spin, spin.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
eh,
when you're using four running backs. I mean, Jackie Battle had to get his obligatory 5 snaps, 6 snaps per game. I mean,
Yeah,
hey,
perhaps the most
not
confusing
saying
offensive
Sankey's a world burner, but
the most confusing offensive setup I've ever seen was when the Titans had Carl Klug, like rotational defensive lineman in at fullback, and Jackie Battle as running back. That was the one where it was like, get ready for the least dynamic offense in history. But Krug did catch a pass. Anyway, yeah, that's bad. This is any Titans talk, just like the interest level. Oh, it's so terrible. So is there one, since you watched every second of Combine, very excited, like a kid at Christmas, is there one drill at the Combine that you think you could pull off?
One drill that I can pull off, and well, I know I can beat Eisen in the 40. That's for darn sure.
I'm tired of Eisen doing the 40. He needs to, like, I was saying, like, why can't he do the gauntlet drill or do the, I don't know, even the bench press? They can put, styrofoam weights. That's fine. But, mix it up a bit. It was exciting 3 years ago, but you got to move on to something else.
Well, when I was coming out of high school, I could bench 225 about 15 times. I'm not sure if I could do that now, probably only about 8 times. But I would love to try the gauntlet, even though I played guard and center and linebacker. I had one career interception and one fumble recovery. So I don't know how much of a baller I'd be, but I'd love to try the gauntlet, that's for sure.
An IDP champion right there. So, Andy, before we call it a night, is there anything that you wanted to, hit on about the Combine or the draft or, anything that's happening?
Well, I tell you, 2 of the guys that I'm excited about wide receiver-wise that not a lot of people are talking about is Philip Dorsett, who ran a blazing, I think it was a 4.33, and he has had a lot of injuries, but I think he's a guy that could be quite a surprise. He's a great returner as well. And then Tyler Lockett from Kansas State is a guy that he's got the bloodlines. His dad was a very good player in the NFL, and I really I like this kid.
What about later round quarterbacks that teams might be willing to take a chance on? It's not a big quarterback class, and I can't recall there not ever being more of a middle class in that grouping. It's either they're up here or they're down there. But are there any guys who could sneak in the later rounds that might be worth developing?
Grayson and Carden are both could become decent backup quarterbacks. I just don't see anybody out of the top 4 ever becoming a starting NFL quarterback other than Winston, Mariota, Hundley, and Petty. Okay. I mean, playing quarterback's hard in the NFL. I mean, that's why they say there's really only 15 or 16 legitimate starting NFL quarterbacks and a lot of other people.
Yeah. Franchise quarterbacks are hard to come by.
Definitely.
And there's not a ton of development for the backup guys. They don't get a lot of snaps. I mean, the situation like the Aaron Rodgers or Philip Rivers, who got a couple of years behind an established starter, that really doesn't happen anymore. So teams are like, oh, we drafted a guy early. You gotta take him. So Andy, where can people find you? Where can people get all your awesome information? Because you got a ton of content on your site right
now. At dynastyblitz.com. It can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Miley or at dynasty_blitz. And I answer all sorts of questions, usually by DM, so people don't even know. But and one of the things is my work for the state of Maine tends to tends to kind of monitor me. So I really don't do a lot of during the day tweeting. Well, during the day especially. It's usually just, here's my article. Hey, can you read it? But I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. And I'm more than willing to look up, and I use Draft Breakdown all the time to.
I do too. I love Draft Breakdown.
And my buddy Brian Perez, him and I were in one of the scouting classes together. He's now a co-owner. I actually used to write for them for a little bit as well. But those are great. I have a feeling in a year or two we're gonna have to be paying some cash to see that stuff. And
Probably.
I'm fine with it because they do such a great job of just
They
being
should
able
get
to
money.
isolate that player. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Andy, you were great. I hope you didn't think I was jumping on you.
No.
Fun fact, though, I have to tell you this. It has long been one of my desires and I've done part of this trip, but I want to drive up through East Tennessee, hit the East Coast, and drive all the way up to Maine and spend some time up, even go to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, spend a lot of time up in that area. That is a bucket list thing for me.
Awesome. It's a beautiful area. My wife is from Maine. One of the reasons that I'm here, my best friend that I met in Ohio going to college was from Maine that got me to come here. I think it was like 12 years ago. And I'm told that I will never, ever be a Mainer, but I have a chance at my 15th year to be a transplant.
Well,
Because
there you go.
1.3 million people in the whole freaking state.
Wow. Well, you got to have a dream.
There you
It's
go.
like I won't ever really be a Southerner, even though I've lived here for 19
You
years.
won't be a Southerner because you don't get the grit.
I don't get the grit.
The day you get the grit, you might become not a damn Yankee.
I like fried stuff. That's good, right?
I even love grits. I don't know how you don't.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, I love grits. And my father actually lives in Franklin.
Tennessee?
Yeah.
I'm just right outside Franklin. I live right outside Franklin.
Oh, okay.
That is so cool. Well, hi, Dad.
So let's give Andy the official, applause. Yes, for a job well done. Before we call tonight, Sharona, what do you got going on? Tell everybody what to expect.
There are a lot of exciting things going on. Hopefully, I know Zach keeps getting mad at me. As you guys know, not a position, but a new focus at NFL Female. Be sure to check out all my NFL update articles there and new job. Don't know what to call it because I'm still writing for Pro Player Insiders, but I'm not going to be covering the Titans, as you guys know. I'm going to be doing different things for them, and I just posted one of my new focus kind of articles today talking about the really cool things that the Carolina Panthers wide receiver and offensive linemen did. They cut their hair for Wigs for Kids, a donation to allow kids with cancer and what have you. So do check that out. These guys aren't all bad guys. There are good guys out there doing wonderful good things, and that's just an example. And, of course, I'm always here with Zach on Going for Two. And check us out Friday on Game Over with Vashti and Sharona. That show has hopefully some new exciting news to announce in the upcoming weeks.
There's always so much going on.
I know.
I am trying to keep the content rolling, other than Zach's new search for a job. Got an interview this week with Jonathan Bales, I call him an industry within an industry, with all of his books, because he just published his first fantasy baseball book. And the best part about that interview is he does say that you can actually play fantasy baseball and profit without actually having to watch the games, so you don't have to watch baseball. That's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. But check that out, and that's really what we got. So thanks, everybody, and especially, well, not especially Andy, always especially Sharona, because she rocks, keeps it mellow. So yeah, let's hope that everything melts shortly here in Atlanta, because we don't deal with the weather so much. And so yeah, thanks everybody for coming on. I will just say good night, good luck, and there is no off season, no such thing. Never heard of it.
Goodbye.
It's not going to happen.
Bye.